Okay, so we're live on Facebook. Hello, Facebook.
Hey, Facebook.
Hello.
I feel
Hi,
like you're getting better at this, Lucy. So much smoother than a few weeks ago.
Jen. We are so good at this. We're the queens
It's
of
your
Facebook.
brilliant, it's
No
your
drama.
tech savviness. It's all your tech savviness.
So let's introduce ourselves just in case nobody stalks us and watches every single live that we do, which why wouldn't they? But some people apparently have got other things to do in their lives and are juggling so much that they maybe can't find the time to watch us. So I'm Lucy Power.
I'm
Who are
Leah
you?
Jenn
Jovy-Ford.
Oh,
I'm Leah Jovy-Ford.
Hi, Leah.
Jen, do you want to say your name again?
sure. I'm Jenn Sutherland, and together we are the leadership team of Beyond School. And today we're talking more about juggling, which I've been getting so many interesting little personal messages from people about this and about the ways in which what we're talking about has resonated with them, and just sharing some of their struggles. And we were talking beforehand about today, we've been talking about the mindset shift, and we've been talking about the things that you need to switch in your head. But today we want to start getting practical and talking about what does that mean? Like, great to make a mindset shift. How do you make a tangible change in your life that greases the wheels, that makes things easier?
I think we've been talking about some really amazing mindset shifts, and it's all about bringing your the stuff that you're not aware of into your conscious awareness so that you can hold it up and actually do something about it. And that's why it's so exciting tonight to be talking about what practical shifts can you make. And as we always do, we're going to leave you with an exercise to do so that you can put something tangible, real, measurable into your life because of this today. So yeah, I'm excited for that. So I'm just going to pull you up onto my screen so that I can see if you comment, so that I can respond to you. I'm talking to you. Yeah.
So we talked about the three mindset shifts that we've covered, and what that's kind of what we cover in the bootcamp on day one. And we talk about those mindset shifts and why they're so crucial and what stops people from making them and how to start making them. And then in day two, we talk much more about the practical nuts and bolts and how you can kind of embed those and how you can almost build scaffolding around your daily habits and actions and behaviors to keep those mindset shifts going and to kind of make the change. Because, we talk about it's like a change in belief, and it isn't just something that happens overnight. It's like a daily, weekly, monthly practice. And it's something that you need to keep working on and And it's all very well saying, I've changed my mind. I now believe this. But if your habits still continue in the same way, that is, that it's like there's this friction, there's this kind of disconnect, and you're probably going to find that actually you may find it really easy to fall back into the old way of thinking and not keep embedding the new way of thinking. So it's about, we've made those mindset shifts, but how do you kind of create the scaffolding in your day-to-day life that supports those and that allows you to keep treading that different path?
Boy, the forming of new habits, Leah. Whoa, like that's it right there. You can, because we can talk a good game, right? Like you can read the book and you can go, yes, I am now enlightened in this way. But then you get dragged back into all the old patterns because you're still behaving a certain way. And when my kids were little, somebody said to me, made this comparison of how adults versus children learn and how our beliefs are formed. And they said, for children, they form their beliefs out of what they actually do. So their habits form their belief. But for adults, we believe a certain thing and then we form our habits to that. And that was such an interesting shift. And I don't know necessarily where that happens, where that shift happens, but it's definitely a truism. And I think, I know for me, making a mindset shift feels like the easy part. Figuring out, because I don't even always know what my bad habits are, right? Like, this is bothering me, but why? What did I do that set it up this way?
But I think that almost hits on, we talked about the three mindset shifts. So the first one is putting you first and prioritizing yourself. The second one is modeling and being the model that you want to be. And the third one is kind of integration and not compartmentalization. And, when you talk then about kids kind of do something and then they form the belief, but it's how do they know what to do? And often that comes from modeling. So they see what we do and then they do the same kinds of things and then they start to form those beliefs. And that's how the generational patterns form, even though they maybe don't have those beliefs because they're kids. But
they're on autopilot. They're just unconsciously acting out the thing.
So they act out, they model what they see and they copy what they see, and then they're on autopilot, and then they start to form those beliefs and attach and associate those beliefs. And that's how some of the generational patterns kind of happen. And then, all of a sudden we're doing this stuff without really questioning where it came from and why we're doing it in that way.
But also that's how good patterns form, right? Like the hope for me in that, like the positive in that is, okay, great. So if I shift the way I'm thinking and I shift the behavior pattern to form new habits, well, then my kids, the people around me, they benefit from that in the same way that they were suffering from whatever I was not modeling well.
Yeah. So that's, that is mindset shift too, which is the model. You consciously choose you question what you were doing. You consciously choose a different way, or the way that you want to do it, whether it's keeping some of the same stuff or, replacing it or whatever. And then it's putting in place the behavior and the actions that your kids then see and can copy and model. And then that is how, that's how you shift. It's how you change those generational patterns. It can be really seem hard to change.
Okay, so in prioritizing you and your needs first, that's the first mindset shift. Practically, I can go, okay, great, I'm prioritizing myself now. And then my kids are climbing the walls because they need all the things that they're not pretending they need, they actually need. Like, it's my responsibility. So how does that happen? What does it look like to prioritize your needs? What's the practical?
Well, we were talking just
thing.
Go
on. What if we're going to say something different though?
Oh, go on. Will you say your bit first, and then I can say my bit?
Okay. I think the first and most important thing to do when you attach to your own importance and start to meet your own needs first and foremost is setting boundaries. And actually there's a step behind that, isn't it? Is knowing what you like and don't like, who you are, who you're not, what you're prepared to do, what you're not prepared to do. So there's that complete backward engineering from becoming the change that you want to be in the world, and setting boundaries based on who you truly are and what you truly want to see and be and think and feel in your world is really important. I keep thinking about
right back to the first call, which was all about boundaries.
Yeah, I keep thinking about my bin, right? In my kitchen, my partner moved our bin about 3 weeks ago. I keep walking to the wrong, where it no longer is, to put things in the bin. And it's there now. It's completely the other end of a big kitchen. And there I trot, and then I'm like, oh God, turn around and go and put it in the bin. So I'm thinking about, there's not a bit of me that decided to put the bin where it now is. I, in fact, think it was better off where it was before. So everything in me is screaming against the change. And that's why mindset and action need to be
aligned.
Yeah, like that.
That sets me up perfectly. Oh, sorry. You were worried that we were going to say something different, and we are. But what you said sets me up perfectly for the bit that I was going to say.
Oh, which was lovely.
So we were talking about friction before. So when we're talking about kind of self-care and putting yourself first, and I people call it extreme self-care or radical self-care, and there's a version of that which is, really put yourself first to the extreme, which I know women in particular find hard. But it doesn't even have to be like that. It can be as simple as, so if you look at where there is friction in your life, so that, for example, is the perfect example of something really small that could easily and quickly remove that friction. And you can go through your day-to-day and look at the points of friction which cause you, frustration or annoyance or angst or whatever it is. And it's, it's things like, if you know that you constantly need something that it's the back of the cupboard and it's always at the back of the cupboard, move it forward so that if you go to it several times a day. But it's things like that we kind of don't question, and we don't stop and think about how we can make our lives easier. And that to me is often self-care. It's how can I make my life easy? Why it doesn't need to be that difficult. How can I make things in life much easier?
That's such a good point.
Redesigning the landscape of your life.
Oh, sorry, Leah or Lucy.
It's a conscious redesigning of the landscape of your life from the inside out.
And I think so many women, especially when we think about self-care, we think about the Instagram of like, have a glass of wine, pour a bubble bath, go get your nails done. But actually self-care is like knowing where to find the car keys so you don't lose your mind when you leave the house and yell at a kid, or, getting the trash can where you want it. Or my friend Alex shared this awesome little segment that was from somebody's therapist, and the therapist was getting to this friction point. It was like, what is it that's actually bothering you? And this lady was like, it's actually the dishes. they're driving me crazy, and our dishwasher doesn't really work that well, and I have to rewash half of them, and it's really frustrating. And the therapist was like, so run the dishwasher twice. Like,
or
duh,
3 times,
right?
or
Or
4
3
times.
times. Like, yeah, sometimes it's as simple as going, oh, right, yeah, okay. But that friction thing is such a big deal.
But that's such a great example of we don't question.
Right.
It's like you put the dishwasher on once. That's what your parents did. They never thought to run it twice. So we just do what we've seen done before, and we don't question why or whether there's a different way. And then as soon as it's pointed out, and it's that's one of the things I think that is so useful. You can go through your life and look at all the points of friction and go, well, what is a simple fix? And sometimes it might not be a simple fix, and there are bigger things that need to happen. But there are many simple things that I think people can do, which is self-care. And it's modeling to the kids. It's all of the things. It's the 3 mindset shifts. It's self-care. It's modeling. It's kind of integration. It's kind of doing everything that makes your life and everybody else's life easier, because you are going through and making conscious decisions about the things in your life and the things around you.
And I think we discount how much those little friction points damage our calm. I can think back to when I would lose the plot with my kids. It was almost never over something big. It was over some small thing that was actually most of the time within my realm of control. I could have fixed the problem for myself, but I allowed all that sand in my shoe to just drive me crazy until the people around me then suffered.
Sand in your shoe. I think that's it. And we don't account it because we think this is the way life is. This is the way things are. That bin, where that bin is right now, I'm not at the stage yet where I'm like, that's where bins live. That's just the way it is. There's nothing I can do about it. I'm still fighting that the bins move. So I'm going to continue to do that. But yeah, I was just going to say, I've been divorced twice, once over a dishwasher, the other time over a broken door. And of course, they weren't the reasons. But these things erupt, don't they? They erupt and they cause us so much distress and cognitive dissonance inside, where we think something should be, we want it to be, or it ought to be, or it would be so much nicer if it was this way. And actually it's this way. And we don't know that's happening whilst it's an unconscious process. So what we're doing in our Beyond the Juggle workshop is bringing this stuff up like silt from the bottom of the sea, so that you can get hold of it and look at it, bring it out of the water of the murky depths of the sea and look at it and say, actually, yeah, that works for me, but no, that doesn't work for me at all. Yeah. And I just think it's so important. It's what Denise Duffield Thomas calls a keyless life. So she talked about always being really annoyed because she was scrabbling around in her handbag, couldn't ever find her key to get in or to lock and leave or whichever her house. And so she designed a different way of doing it. And everything fell back into place. Everything felt harmonious. That cognitive dissonance, that impasse rested inside her, and she could then notice the next thing that was causing trouble. So this whole boot camp for us is about bringing the unconscious. I'm not going to say it again, don't worry. I'm not going to say my favorite quote again. Don't make me do it. Don't make me say it.
Oh, please say it.
Go on then. Until we make the unconscious conscious, it will, I think it's until it will direct your life and you will call it fate. So until we bring this stuff up, this unconscious motivation, excuse my colleagues laughing at me, they don't understand how important
laughing with you, in love of you, Lucy. Carry on.
I'm just going to say it on every live. Apparently that's the challenge. Until we know what it is that's making us think, that bin's there, I'm a little annoyed by it. God, that's terrible. My whole life is a shoddy mess. Until we bring that into that's what's happening for me, and that's why I feel a bit stressed, a bit out of alignment when I'm in the kitchen. But it's things like that can be big and little. And as Jen said, sand in your shoe. I love that so much.
It's so annoying. The other thing that I've been talking to people about that I think, in terms of what's practical, how do we do this, is the other friction point that seems to be common to virtually everyone is, and it's annoying, is you find yourself taking responsibility for other people's stuff. And then you're like, oh, why will they not do the thing? And, in some ways, when my kids were little, like for me, it was little tiny things. Like it drove me batty to have to put everybody's shoes on before we left the house, because there were 4 of them. They were all 2 years apart. That's a lot of tying, blah, blah, blah. Jeez. And so I know, right? So the salvation of that was I bought my kids shoes that were slip-on, And I didn't teach them to tie their shoes until they were like begging me to at 7, 8, 9 years old, which seems ridiculous when you look at the kindergarten checklist and it's like, can they tie their shoes? I'm like, no, they freaking can't tie their shoes. And I don't care if they ever do because it's stressing me out. You know, you've never met an adult who can't tie their sneakers.
Yeah.
But then we'd be out places and people would say to me, oh, excuse me, do you know that your 2-year-old shoes are on the wrong feet? And I'm like, yes, I do. And they're responsible for their shoes. And if they like to wear them that way, that's 100% fine, right? Because that allowed me to not be driven crazy by it. But stuff like that, and that's a stupid small example.
But it's the small things that build up, because, you know, we talk about these little tiny things, but, you know, life is full of all of these little tiny things. And if we put up with all of them, what happens is that they become bigger and bigger. And as you know, all together, they become a mountain. And it's never just about that tiny little thing. It's about all of the stuff that builds up. And, you know, one kid can be playing up one day and all of a sudden, all of those bits of friction that have built up over the course of the day become, you know, a massive volcano. And it, you know, and then it comes spewing out, and it's completely unnecessary because we haven't looked at some of the causes of that and the bits of friction that have been causing that all the way through the day.
So what are you guys' strategies for knowing what you should take responsibility for?
I don't know whether I am. I'm going to carry on talking anyway, just in case I've got the stage to myself. There's a concept in transactional analysis called stamp.
I can't hear Lucy anymore.
I can't either. I imagine she can hear herself.
I think it may be Lucy's frozen. I have no idea who's live and who's talking. Let's have a look. I think we're live and we're talking. So shall we carry on?
Are we back mostly?
I can't see Lucy moving, but I can see you and hear you, Jen.
Okay, well, it must be hers, but I think she's the one that's got control of the live. So, oh, she's gone. Hello, everybody. We're still here.
I'm the host now. It's us.
Carry on then, Leah. I mean, the question I was asking, and I don't know if she heard me, but was what practically, how do you stop taking responsibility for stuff? Or maybe not even that. How do you identify the things that are your actual responsibility and the things that are someone else's? Because I think it's muddy.
It's back to the first thing. It's back to the first live that we did, which was boundaries. And I also think it touches on the first mindset shift, which is prioritizing you. And in order for you to do that, you have to know what your needs are, and you have to identify what your needs are. And when you know what your needs are, you can start to identify what isn't something that serves you and what is something that is perhaps serving somebody else. And if you can start to do that, you can then put in place better boundaries to meet your needs first and foremost, which, you know, most of the time when you're a parent ensures that other people's needs are being met too.
Yeah. So I'm going to say a hard thing then. Like, this gets to the heart of why helicopter parenting is such a terrible idea. Did you see that article, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, about how helicopter parenting is actually damaging women's mental health? Like, with all the best intentions to do all the things, we're actually hurting ourselves and our kids probably.
Well, and what we're doing is we're taking, we call it here, we talk more about it in terms of kind of emotional baggage and emotional stuff. But what you're doing is you're taking away the responsibility from your kids. You're taking away the opportunity for them to take responsibility for themselves. And you're taking it all upon yourself. So you're basically saying, here, I'll carry your bag for you. You don't have to do it. You don't have to build up your muscles. You don't have to build up your strength. You don't have to build up your, you know, sustainability or any of your capacity. I'll do it for you. Thinking that we're doing a good job for them, thinking that we're doing the right thing, but actually what we're doing is we are robbing them of their ability to build up the skills and the capacity that they need.
And we're actually hampering their resilience. We're creating people who won't be able to do it for the next generation because they didn't learn the skills when it was small and easy. So, you know, in terms of responsibility, like, I think it's really important that people spend some time thinking about, particularly in a family dynamic, what is my responsibility? What is someone else's responsibility? And then how do I let go of that? Like, I think I said in one of our earlier ones, one of my mentor moms one time really called me out on that. She was like, why are you still taking responsibility for that child? And I was like, because I'm the mom, I guess. And she was like, no. You know, and coming to the point where you recognize that it's not just lowering your own frustration level, it's actually good parenting.
Serving them
else to be frustrated.
Yeah. Well, and we can't protect, it isn't our job to protect them from life. It isn't our job to protect them from the hard bits of life, because they are going to go out and they are going to experience hard things that, they need to know how to cope with, and they need to know how to be adaptable and flexible and agile and all of those things. And if we do it all for them in childhood, what kind of models are we being, and what are we preparing them for as they move into adulthood?
So one way to juggle less is to do less for our kids. That sounds really backwards and like almost mean, but it's actually a truth.
But we what we have here on a practical day-to-day basis is, I've got a blended family, and I've got 4 kids, and I've got a 7, 8 and 2 11-year-olds, and they all do their own breakfasts. They mostly do their own lunches. We come down, and if they've made a mess in the kitchen, they all have to work together to tidy it up. And and the 11-year-olds have had more years where they haven't had to do that, and we've got the 7 and the 8-year-olds doing it now. And but we can't manage without it. As a family and as a team, we can't do without it. And if we just said, as the mums, okay, fine, we'll just do it, we'll do it all, we would be so exhausted, so tired. And it serves them as well, because they learn the skills, but it also means that we can conserve time and energy that we can put into doing some really nice stuff with them, because we haven't spent all of our time and energy doing the dross and the and the chores and the hard stuff for them.
But, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but in my experience, teaching them to do those things is also hard work. So like, if you're in this habit of having been the martyr mom of like, fine, I'm just going to do all the things, and then all of a sudden you have this mindset shift and you think, right, okay, someone else actually needs to take over the dishwasher. You're 3, you're old enough to carry all the bathroom trash cans. From now on, they shall all be yours. You make that shift. Well, for a good while, while you're forming that new habit, what do they say? 28 days or something to a new habit. For a month at least, it's actually going to be more work.
Yep.
Because not only do you have to choose not to do it, which is hard emotional work, you have to train someone else to do it. And then you have to police the 2 parts of the job, one of which is doing well. The other one is having a good attitude, right?
Yeah.
And the kids are going to buck, because they're going to be like, what do you mean? It magically appeared clean. Laundry turned up in my room magically by the laundry fairy for all these years. I have to do this now. There's no way. I want my laundry fairy back. Like, they're going to push, right?
Yeah.
But
it's a push. It's for for us, it's a push. And particularly with the youngest, who is the only boy, it's a constant daily struggle of please do this, please make sure you've done this. And they get really wound up when we give them a list of things to do, and it's like, let me just do the first thing first. Don't tell me the next few things. And we kind of want to tell them all of the things that they need to do before they can do X, Y, and Z. But it's it's again, we talk to them about the why. We often talk to them about the why, and it's about empowering and enabling them and facilitating them, so that when they grow up, they aren't clueless. My son isn't going to grow up, and this is what I tell him frequently, and need a woman to.
I loved what you said to him. I wasn't going to mention it because that's a bit intrusive to Samson's world, but I loved what you said to him the other day about that.
Yeah,
because I said the same thing in my voice.
He's not going to grow up and need a woman to cook and clean and do his things, and he's got a father who also knows how to do those things. So that really, it's like, Daddy doesn't need a woman to do it. He does it himself, and he can keep a house, and he can look after you too, and he can cook and clean, do everything he needs to do. And surely you don't want to grow up like that, where you need a woman to do all of those things for you.
You want to get beyond needing a mom. That's the goal, right?
So that works.
Is like, okay, the kids are one thing. We have some modicum of control over that, right? The partners, like a lot of women are carrying. I was reading something today that said that the previous to the pandemic, they figured it was 2 to 1 for unpaid labor. Maybe it was you who posted it.
I posted it, in Boost.
And then post-pandemic, they're saying it's probably 3 or 4 times to 1 the workload for domestic labor between women and men. And I remember clearly, like your kid's dad, my partner is 100% checked in. There was no 50-50 relationship. It was 100-100. He always showed up. He did all the things. But, for many years when the kids were my career choice, and that's what I was doing primarily, I did a lot of the domestic things with them in the course of my daily life, just because that's how it worked. And I chose that, and it was fine. But then when I started working full time, as they got older, I was still doing, 60% of the domestic labor. And I was like, listen, this can't work. I can't do this, which you are doing, and then do all of it. He was amazing. Of course, it was just a matter of us both recognizing the patterns and changing them, right? So it was fine. And it was awesome to do while the kids were with us and watching. Super good for them.
Yes.
But But a lot of people are struggling with a situation where they find themselves juggling all of the domestic things because they have a partner who also believes in the damn laundry fairy.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, it's interesting because I'm obviously I have a wife, so I'm in the same sex relationship, and we don't quite have that gender imbalance, although we do work as a team. And, you know, when one of us is more focused on the income, the other does more of the kind of kid and house stuff, and that works. But it's not so obvious, the gender inequality, which I think is quite a big deal for many families and many mothers.
I think even men who consider themselves progressive, you know, they don't even realize how much of that has been, you know, it's almost like systemic racism in a way. You don't realize how much you've internalized because you're frog in the pot. And it's the same with the gender roles. And you know, we've worked really hard to bring complete equity to that in our relationship. But I think in terms of asking people to step away from the juggle, asking them to make these 3 mindset shifts, like that's a harder one sometimes than with the kids, because you're dealing with another adult.
And I think, I mean, one of the things that we are going to cover in the boot camp, what are the things that stop you? What are the things that are going to stop you? You know, what are all of the things that you foresee? It's all very well saying, I want to do this and I want to change this and I want to change that. But what are the things that are going to trip you up and stop you? And what can you put in place and how can you start to address those? And it's, you know, it's about a plan. It is having a plan. This stuff doesn't change overnight. It doesn't change without conscious awareness, and it doesn't change without a plan of action and, you know, constant ongoing work in the areas that you choose to focus on.
And ideally someone or a group of someone's to be accountable to that change with. You know, I think it's really hard to change these patterns by yourself.
Yeah.
When you're lone ranging it, it's much better if you've got a group of people to work with who will call you out, who will ask you how you're doing, who will help you see where, you know, you're falling back into an old pattern. But that scaffolding is so important. And that's like, that'll be the takeaway from the boot camp, is I feel like people will come away knowing what their specific friction points are. And they'll have a plan of action for, like, not only how am I going to shift my mind about that, but what am I practically going to do to either alleviate that completely, if possible, like, you know, the trash can or the shoes, those are fixable issues, or what is their plan going to be for changing the behavior pattern, the habit that they're in that's causing that to continue.
Yeah. And then it is the ongoing work and having that community support and people to bounce stuff off and people to kind of point things out that you are still potentially unaware of. And, you know, that I think is key, particularly when it comes to mothers and putting themselves first, which is, you know, people think they're doing a great job and then someone comes in and goes, but you're still doing this for them.
That was me, totally. And that mentorship, like when my kids were small, I actively and intentionally chose mentor moms, and I told them who they were. And I asked them to, if they saw me screwing it up, please say something, because I wanted to know that when my kids were 5 and 10, not when they're 19 and on the way out the door. And then some older, wiser mom goes, oh yes, well, I saw you screwing that up and I just didn't. Like, are you kidding? That's not helpful. Tell me how. You can't know when you're hip deep in it.
Yeah.
So Lucy had talked about leaving people with a tool. I have one. Do you have one that you wanted to share, or should I share mine?
Share yours.
Okay. So for me, not just, I mean, for everything in the juggle, and this can be career. I was first introduced to this in a work context, but it equally applies to relationships, to children, to all of those things. And it's a 3-piece self-evaluation model for whatever segment of your life you're working on. And it's called Stop, Start, Continue. And, you know, you look at your business life, your work life, you look at your relationship, you look at what's going on with your kids, and you ask yourself, what do I need to stop right now? And often there's something that'll come to mind, like I need to stop micromanaging my toddler's shoe situation because truly it doesn't matter. Next to that, because it's not enough just to stop a bad pattern, right? You have to replace it with something that's good. So what do I then need to start doing instead? And then what do I need to continue doing? Like what's going well in that space that I definitely need to continue? Because there will almost always be things that are going well. And if you keep going at them, you keep being diligent at them, they're going to continue to improve your life. So what do I need to continue? But what do I need to stop immediately? What do I need to start? And what do I need to continue? And I have been known at various points in my life to write these on a sticky note. Stop, start, continue, and stick them someplace that I can see it. Because for me, that's the only way to get a habit to stick, is to have it in my face all the time.
Yeah, no, it's a great
That's exercise. My challenge for people this week.
I did it for years in my business and I would do it every week. What do I need to stop, start, continue? The other tip, if people want to look at habit formation, is to look at a guy called James Clear. And he has a book called Atomic Habits. And he has been working deeply in the habits area for years now, well over a decade, and looking at kind of how people can form new habits and stop bad habits. But
that's a great book. I haven't read it in years. I need to go back and have another read.
Yeah. But his blog, he's got so much information on his blog as well. I think it's jamesclear.com. So it's definitely worth having a look at.
Excellent.
Okay.
Yeah. I think we lost Lucy altogether. I hope she didn't fall right off the universe.
I may be in control of I think I'm the host, so I can stop the live stream.
All right. Well, we'll be back on Friday, same station, right? Yeah.
Talking a little bit more about some of the practical stuff, I think, and what to expect from the boot camp. If you choose to join us.
All right, I'll be here.
All right, so we'll see you on Friday.
Bye.